This is another episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Comedy and magic, and how together these two art forms entertain the masses. Joining me in the studio is a television celebrity. He did over 100 TV shows back in the 70s and 80s. He's done large corporate events and a regular at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Wilson. Larry, the crowd goes wild.
The adulation of the crowd.
Well, we've had some amazing discussions about comedy, about magic, the two working together. You are a master comic magician. You've done stage, TV, corporates, small, intimate close-up shows, huge stage productions in Vegas and in Reno. Really a well-experienced professional entertainer. But you have an unusual story in that you kind of fell into it. As you said,
hell yes.
Kind of dumb luck all the way.
All the way.
And
still continues to
it's still amazing. But you and I have both name dropped several professional entertainers that we've interacted with and worked with over the years, over the decades, really. Larry, please explain to the audience, first as a person and as an entertainer, but also as a comic magician, is there any idols you have or anybody that you kind of looked up to or maybe learned from? I'm going to break into an example. Maybe your comedy came from a certain type of comic that you heard from, Bill Cosby or somebody, George Carlin, or not. And then magically, there's a lot of famous magicians, Thurston and Houdini, and you go on and on historically. Cardini, one of the first comic magicians, at least by some standards, that have been out there doing this art form. For you, who affected your life and your career?
Well, it's a really complicated question.
Well, that's why we have the whole show to do it.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, so many of those comedy influences you talk about. I had every Cosby album he ever released, and I would listen to them until I wore them out. Bob Newhart, of course. Fantastic.
No, I love Bob Newhart.
Oh, my God. But all these people, remember Bill Dana?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Smothers Brothers?
Classic.
Oh, my God, the Smothers Brothers. All these people had huge influence on me. In terms of comedy magic, do you remember the great Ballantine?
Yes. Now, that was... it's interesting you mentioned him because he was not really ever considered... I mean, I guess he was a comic magician.
Oh, my God.
But that's not how he was presented.
Don't make me come over there and slap you. Carl Ballantine, the great Ballantine, I think is probably the first official comedy magician.
Oh, see, in the Magic Castle, there's a whole tribute to Cardini, the great Cardini,
yes.
As being the first. And he was earlier in...
Well, of course, he's in the 40s.
Yeah.
Ballantine, I don't think really...
60s, right?
Well, 50s, I think.
50s?
But Ballantine started out as a straight magician.
That's what I was alluding to. By the way, everybody go to the Googler, look up this guy. There's got to be some, I know he did some early TV and stuff.
Oh, he's on Ed Sullivan all the time, man.
So you can go check this guy out. But go ahead, Larry. I remember him as a straight magician that got funny.
Well, because I think he felt he just couldn't get any traction as a straight magician. And I've seen his daughter, Saratoga, is a member of the castle. And so I've gotten to know her. Before he passed away, I got to meet him several times. He was enormously complimentary. He couldn't have been nicer. He saw some set of mine and had very nice things. I mean, it's just unbelievable. He was one of those guys. Now, I'll tell you, it's funny. You start me thinking about stuff. To me, Carl Ballantine is the real start of comedy magician. He's not pretending. Now, obviously, he could do great magic, but he saw that's not what was the sell.
That got him all those shots on the Sullivan Show and stuff.
The sell is this bombastic, ridiculous guy, puts on a blindfold, spreads these cards out on his outstretched arm, starts talking about this is going to be crazy. He's going to throw the cards, he's going to catch them. His description is so overwhelming. He says, I can't stand this. Whips the blindfold off, says, this sounds so good, I got to see it myself. Oh my God. He's got a hat on the table. He's talking about he's going to reach in the hat, pull out a rabbit. He's big buildup, leans over, shouts into the hat, get ready, boy, I'm coming down. And reaches into this hat up to his shoulder. I remember as a kid seeing this on that Sullivan Show and just losing my mind. So he's the very first. But, it starts me thinking of all these people. I saw a guy once at the Magic Castle named Vito Scotti.
Never heard of him.
Nope. But you've seen him, just not as a magician.
Oh.
As an actor. I even think he may be in the original Godfather film, Vito Scotti. I'm not positive. But again, IMDb and you'll find it. But when I saw him at the castle, he didn't do a single trick. His act was all pantomime, pretending to do magic.
Oh, really?
To music. No speaking. But he was such a fantastic actor. And he would do a thing where he would pretend he was taking a ring off his finger, but we could see there's no ring there. So he's just pantomime. Then he would hold it up and display it the way magicians do. Then he would appear to grab his other hand, then show his hand empty. And he would gesture like, wasn't that incredible? And then he would show both hands and show both sides. It's not there. And he'd make a face as if, where is it? And then he would turn his head to the audience and point to his earlobe, like the ring was there on his earlobe, and the crowd burst into applause. There was no ring. He would do all this.
That's hysterical.
It was so amazing.
Oh, I'm sorry I never got to see that. It sounds so classic.
It was incredible. And again, I'm looking at going, this guy is the real deal.
Well, and that kind of talent, and it shows the importance of acting in the physical aspect. I mean, we've already talked in earlier parts of this series about how important the verbal patter of a magician or being a comic doing magic is. And we talked a little bit about the difficulty of using physical comedy in magic. However, being the kind of actor that he was, that he could generate an interaction with the audience simply by acting, pantomiming magic without even doing it is incredible.
It was amazing. Now, I have to tell you, what you're saying is absolutely spot on. I mentioned in an earlier episode about this Japanese magician, Shoot Ogawa, who's a multi-award winner, is incredible. But Shoot, we brought up for this event for the nonprofit. I told you about this event, Spellbinders, we do in Reno in November. And one of the things Shoot did for the group of us after hours, he did a lecture. He taught a bunch of stuff. And Shoot was talking about how you have to rehearse the movements you're doing. If you have a deck of cards and you take one card off and stick it in your pocket, if you're doing some secret move where you don't really take the card off, he said, you have to rehearse it over and over again so that when you are doing the fake move, it's absolutely
identical to the real
identical.
move.
You cannot. And as he was doing, he was tossing a coin from hand to hand. And he said, if I'm doing this, I have to look at my hands and learn. And while he was doing it, a couple of times, he would open the hand that he tossed the coin in and it was empty. And we realized he hadn't tossed the coin. But because he was doing what he was talking about, your brain registered, yeah, he just tossed that coin. I mean,
I think you mentioned earlier that there's a visual Was it Houdini that said, somebody mentioned that it was important that what people see and what people hear.
That's Houdini, yes. With the mind, with the eye sees and the ear hears, the mind believes.
Yeah, and that is a big key to illusion. That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. So you've named a number of people that you were able to not necessarily emulate, but shown you a different way and helped you.
There's so much. This is why it's interesting. When I hear about people who say they're bored, I can't even imagine what's going on with them. There's so much in this life to learn, to practice, to do. I don't see how you could ever be bored. I don't get that. I don't understand that. When people say, oh, no, I've gone as far with this as I can, I'm thinking, why would you even say that? In other words, there's so many people. I met a guy last year in Erie, Pennsylvania, a guy named Garrett Thomas. He's from New York. He did some of the most amazing close-up magic I've ever seen. It was seriously melting my brain. And I have no idea how he was doing the stuff he was doing. Now, I found out later, Garrett is the guy who's sort of the number one consultant for David Blaine.
Oh.
That he creates stuff specifically for David to do.
Blaine, yeah.
But it was so well conceived. It was so brilliantly thought out.
Well, I think it's great that what you're saying is that even though you've had 40 years in the business and you've done it all, seen it all, you're still learning. You're still amazed by people that are doing maybe the same trick, but a different way. And it's interesting that you make the point that I think in all the arts, for a singer, there's always another song to sing. In actors, there's always another play to do. In comedy, there's always another direction you can take your humor. And in magic, there's maybe a better way to hone a trick, or always a new trick, or a new way to do a trick.
Always a new way. Always some genius thing that nobody thought was possible. And then someone says, well, there might be a way to do it. And they come up with something. I think of the words of the poet Bob Dylan, who said, he not busy being born is busy dying.
Oh, well, there's a little philosophy for everybody.
If
it works.
Like you say, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff to learn. I don't understand when people sort of go, oh, that's enough. I've got it all.
And in magic, comedies, because it's basically talking, you can go 1,000 million different directions.
Right.
Magic, there's not just close up, and then there's card magic, and then there's the kind of the big stage box magic, and then there's the other illusions where death-defying stuff.
Right.
But there's probably a million, well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but probably 100 to 1,000 different variations of all those different types of magic. It all falls under magic.
Right.
But or illusion, to be more specific. But they're all, and then you take how many different ways they could be presented, and you have an infinite number.
Right. Well, I'll tell you something interesting about that. Magicians frequently won't share their secrets. Sometimes, if you're friends with someone, most of the magic I know, I learned from books, and I frequently got it wrong because the books were so impenetrable, so hard to understand. Somewhere along the line, some more experienced magician would see what I was doing and go, why are you holding your hand like that? I go, I thought that's the way you're supposed to. They say, no, turn your hand so it's palm up. And then I go, oh, this is much better. And they go, yeah, someone shows you, corrects you, coaches you, shows you how to do it properly, right? Well, sometimes, though, magicians won't share stuff. They have pet effects that they don't share with anyone. Well, there's no law against thinking. So somebody sees somebody do some amazing thing, and they're thinking, how did that work? Now they go back and they come up with a way to do it. But frequently they're wrong.
It's a different way to do the same illusion.
They've invented a new way. That's the reason. Take a iconic effect like sawing a woman in half. There are probably a dozen different ways. Now, to the audience, they all look like sawing a woman in half. To magicians, there's subtle differences to them. Oh, this you can only do with a woman who's 5'2" or shorter. This you can only do on stage with stage lights set. This you can, the audience doesn't perceive it. But so in that regard, any effect that you can think of, there may be a dozen or 24 different ways to do it.
Well, and the point of this is that there's always something to learn, that there's no such thing. I think just as a total off the wall analogy, that's the reason golf is popular. You're never going to have the perfect game over and over and over.
That's right.
It just, you could have all the mechanics down. You could do all the weather challenges and all the various aspects of it, and still it's different every shot. And I think magic and comedy's different, but I think magic, well, no, I guess like comedy, they can really go anywhere. It all depends on the imagination of the person. We're closing things down. Let me ask, as a professional, that we're both aging a bit in our careers, is there people that you're seeing in today's young magic, let's say, that are impressing you, or could be the next Houdini? That's probably too big a thing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, there'll never be another Houdini.
Yeah, I was reaching too far. I felt it as soon as I said it.
I'll tell you one of the reasons there'll never be another Houdini. Houdini's name is synonymous with magic. But Houdini was not a great magician. He was a great escape artist.
I know, isn't that funny?
But he was also a really brilliant self-promoter.
Yeah, marketing
was
his key.
Oh my! So he's a once in a lifetime. There's never going to be anything like that. But like I mentioned, I said to you before, this guy Garrett Thomas, I saw him do unbelievable stuff. There's a young guy now who I think has a show in Las Vegas, Shin Lim.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask about him. We were amazed when we saw him on America's Got Talent. He seems like he could have a really good career. Fantastic.
Incredible magic. And particularly interesting that he has a background in classical music.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He was a classical pianist, classically trained pianist, and developed, I don't know if it was arthritis or carpal tunnel syndrome, couldn't play. And so I think, if I understand correctly, started doing close-up magic just to exercise his hands.
Interesting.
And the reason I think it's so interesting is everything he does has a rhythm to it. Like he's hearing some sound in his head. Like he can hear the music that goes along.
So having his musical background helps him with his timing and his presentation, because he is amazing.
Really incredible. But there are a number of young people.
Well, you mentioned that it was earlier in the series, the winner of the Asian or Magician of the Year award was just at the Magic Castle. What was her name?
Juliana Chen.
Juliana Chen, another tremendous act that's new to the U.S., that has obviously rehearsed every physical movement.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
She's utterly fantastic.
So they're out there.
Oh, there's no question. And it's interesting because the ones who appeal to me, of course, are the ones who, it's not because they know me or they've heard what I've talked about. It's because they've discovered on their own. They're showing what they really are, what their sensibility, what they see dealing with life. In other words, their worldview comes through in what they do. And I think that's absolutely true of someone like Shin Lim. That's what I guess I'm saying. The classical music is still running in his head, whether they're playing music or not. I can see him taking musical crescendos and arpeggios and rests, musical rests, and I can see it. I mean, it's part of what makes him look so good, the rhythm of what he's doing. So the people who are able to let themselves really shine are the ones that I enjoy the most.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights on comedy and magic. And today, some of your views on the future of the industry and also the people that inspired you in the beginning of this episode of this series. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another in the series on comedy and magic and how together these two art forms entertain the masses. Larry, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure entirely.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. There's always more coming ahead. And please tell your friends and family.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.